Welcome back to Capital Connection. I'm Hadley Gamble here live from the DIFC in Dubai. Let's take a quick look at how markets here across the Middle East fared yesterday. Now, we saw a major fall in Egyptian stocks, the EGX 30 down over 3.5% to its lowest level in the last 12 months as the global emerging market turmoil continues to roil that market. The selling heavily concentrated among local investors hit by margin calls, with many overseas fund managers playing the long game and citing an improving economy. Now, elsewhere, of course, banking shares did give Saudi Arabia a boost, and we're going to be keeping a very close eye on how that market performs through the rest of the week off the back of the news that Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi has still not been found or located, and a lot of questions about what's going to happen next in regards to this case, especially as we're just 2 weeks or so away from the next Davos in the desert, the next FII summit in Riyadh. Let's listen in to Richard Engel's report.
Protesters converged on Saudi Arabia's consulate in Istanbul, demanding answers after the mysterious disappearance of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. They're convinced the Saudi royal family is responsible. President Trump weighing in.
I am concerned about it.
Khashoggi had been living in the U.S., writing for the Washington Post, often critical of the powerful Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Last Tuesday, Khashoggi walked right into the Saudi consulate. He needed paperwork so he could marry his Turkish fiancée. While she waited outside, Turkish officials say he was either drugged or murdered. One Turkish official suggesting he could have been taken out in pieces. Turkey's president demanding Saudi officials prove Khashoggi left the building alive. The Saudi government said it wasn't involved and is working to locate Khashoggi. Richard Engel, NBC News.
That was Richard Engel reporting from NBC. Now, Nancy, of course, we are keeping a very close eye on this developing story. Not much coming out of Saudi Arabia at this point, and certainly investors here and internationally are asking a lot of questions about what this will mean for the Davos in the desert just a couple of weeks away. What did you hear on the ground there at the Barclays Asia Forum?
Well, Hadley, many people are hesitant to comment on this situation, given that we know so little at this stage. But I did have one expert here in the field of intelligence, that is, someone who's worked in the government for quite some time. That is the former DNI, James Clapper. And it was interesting because he, too, didn't want to jump to any conclusions here. But I had a chance to ask him more broadly speaking, just given the scrutiny that Saudi Arabia is under today, without knowing what actually happened in this case. We're talking about a time when others have already called into question whether or not we're really looking at MBS who's pushing towards reform, or whether or not there are some concerns on the side about a heavy hand in certain areas when we talk about the concerns the U.S. allies and Canada have expressed before, too. So how do you balance this, and how does it all play into the crucial time in which the U.S. has really partnered with Saudi Arabia in the region? Take a listen to what he had to say.
My own impression and characterization of MBS has changed over time from the first time I met him till later on. And I think his idea of reform in Saudi is a good one. He's going to have a hard time doing that, and whether or not he can achieve such reform remains to be seen. And we deal with a lot of foreign nation states whose practices perhaps are not so much to our liking, like North Korea.
So there you have it. That was James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence for the U.S. That is just one view on the geopolitical front, but I can certainly tell you the big focus here is all about trade tensions globally, the economic divergence story. Many are talking about, wondering if there is such a thing as a divergence play, and how you work around what many have referred to as the changing rates paradigm. We'll be speaking to Mohammed Al-Arian of Allianz coming up with that in just a few minutes.
And honestly, Nancy, I have to say, I can't wait to hear more from those interviews that they're doing, certainly with regards to what they're referring to now as this new Cold War with China, between the United States and China. I think that's a very interesting dynamic, and one certainly that's going to have an impact on markets going forward. But certainly seen here in the Middle East, we're talking about what's happening with Jamal Khashoggi, what's going to happen next in that relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia, for example. And just to put it a bit into context, you have to remember, of course, we're hearing a lot of noise out of President Erdogan, the president of Turkey. Now, of course, that's a country that's the highest on on the list for imprisoning journalists. And certainly when it comes to Iran and we talk about human rights, there are a lot of questions there as well. So nobody's got a stellar record on human rights in the region. So I think that it's going to be interesting to watch how this all plays out. Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.